Hey everyone, it's Clint and Reagan. We wanted to jump on here, have just a casual, short conversation about making big decisions, relationships, communication, any knowledge that we have that we can share with you on that topic.
As a communication major, you're kind of taught to read language. You're taught to read the words. You're taught to read body language. You're taught to read a lot of things. Proximity to one another.
We don't get too far from each other.
No, but anyways, as I was saying, you're taught to read, and when you're reading something, reading someone, it's best to have an open line of communication, and that's really the fundamentals of anything: big decision, relationships, friendships, whatever you're doing. Sometimes you kind of want to draw back, and you know when it's something that's real heavy, you don't want to cause any ruffles. You want to just keep her steady as she goes, and sometimes you're going to have to make those hard talks. You're going to have those, and you're better off for it for the simple fact that you're tackling an issue that's not lingering. Like I said, this applies to anything. It applies to big decisions, whether you're wanting to buy a house, whether you're wanting to buy a new vehicle, whether you're wanting to move, change jobs, start a family, whatever it is, you've got to have that talk, you've got to have that communication. And so with big decisions, you've got you and your partner, and you kind of want to consider your partner whenever you make a big decision. And the big decision can be, a big decision to you is probably different what it is to me.
Religion is always a big decision, where you're going to go to church, what you're going to do about things like that. I know some big decisions for us are like holidays. How are we going to treat holidays with our families? Of course, we can only talk from our experiences and the things that we've gone through in past relationships and our relationship.
So, like a big decision, for instance, when I think the first big decision that we made together was buying this house. And I remember going through that process. And I'm a first-time home buyer, and I'll never forget the nervousness. Is my credit score up enough? Am I going to get approved? What happens if I don't get approved? Is she going to look at me like I'm a failure? I know a lot of guys look at any situation that, you don't want your partner to look at you differently. And so I know that was kind of like heavy on me too. I know it sounds silly, but there's like a lot of things that went into that. But that one was really, I think, the biggest decision at the time.
And that was, like he said, that was a first-time decision for him, and so that was something he had never experienced before. And so I was able to be there and help him through that, but kind of the most important message that we want to send with big decisions and with your relationship in general is that you have to communicate in a relationship. If you don't keep that line open, that's when things are going to start crumbling and falling apart.
That is key.
When we make big decisions, we talk about things sometimes for an hour, sometimes for a week, months. It depends, but it's something that you don't ever take lightly. And communication along the way is how we believe that you're able to come to the right decision. And being able to openly talk about pros, about cons, and keeping an objective mindset when you're on the receiving end of that communication is so key to be able to make the right decisions for yourself, for your family, for your relationship. And I know our policy is we're just going to always be honest. We're always going to communicate. If he's getting on my nerves, he knows it. If I'm getting on his nerves, I know it. But especially when we're making big decisions and life-altering decisions that are going to affect our family, in the long term and what our future looks like.
Yeah, and that, as a communication major, that's kind of what we're taught, is that you can maintain anything, you can grow anything by having that communication. And that's a building block in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, relationship between your parents, your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Communication is king. And a lot of times, men, I don't know if you have a problem with this, but in the beginning with her, I would always keep stuff to myself. If something bothered me, I was like, I don't want to cause any grief. I don't want to say anything. And she would pick up on it, and she would always be like, what's going on? What, you're thinking about something? And no, I'm good. No, tell me. And I had to grow from that, and I had to learn to, share what's on my chest and what's on my mind, so that way that, I'm not keeping anything from her. And if there's a situation or a problem, that's how you're gonna solve it. You're gonna solve it by talking, by communicating, by just sharing what's on your mind to your partner, because they can't help you if you don't tell them, and you can't get help if you don't tell them. That's something that she stressed, I will say, from the get-go, was, talk to me. It helps a lot when you do that, because that way you know where you're at.
We keep that line of communication open. Sometimes I do still have to pull it out of him, but he's gotten a lot better. You're never going to grow if you don't communicate. I think that's a huge stunt in the growth process if you stop communicating. If you notice, in your relationship even, that your significant other is not doing things maybe that he used to do, or just acting different. Yeah. I know people kind of blame it on that honeymoon phase. That's kind of an easy target to say, yeah, it's getting different, just our honeymoon phase is over, that's all it is. No, take a step back and reflect, because you're still the same two people, and you genuinely, if you love and you care about them, you're going to still want to do those things and still want to make, the other person happy. You want to have that same relationship, and if you really focus in on it, probably the communication has slowed down. And so if you reflect on that and you see that it's a communication error, then you can get back to that honeymoon phase if it ever went away.
And just to kind of build off of that, I've never quite understood the whole, well, it's just the honeymoon phase. I think that in a relationship, you've got to build. You're building every day, that you're putting in work. I mean, if you genuinely care about the relationship, every day you're putting in work. You're doing things sometimes that you don't want to do, but your partner wants to do, or your partner's doing things that they don't want to do, but they're doing it because they love you. I had a guy tell me one time, it's not 50-50. It's not 100%. It's 200%, because you're going to have to give 100% on your end, and they're going to have to give 100% on their end. And I think that's exactly right. I think it's a 200% type of situation. And so just kind of circling back to where it all starts, communication, talking. She still checks me every now and then when I, if I get upset about something. And I'll, sometimes I'll blame it. I'll be like, it's that sports team, for her, it's the Dallas Cowboys. If she did, they're always doing something silly. For me, it's the Denver Broncos.
Or the Cubs.
Mm-hmm. And she's a Cardinals fan, St. Louis. But that's kind of what we do, and that's kind of what we build on. Is we build on each other, and we put in the work. I know it's easy for a new marriage, a new couple, to try and drop knowledge like that, but I think if you know, you know.
And this isn't even for marriage advice. This is dating advice. This is friendship advice. I don't know about y'all, but me and my friends, we Snapchat, and we've got those streaks. We communicate every day. And so don't think that this is by any means a hard and fast, we know marriage. No, we haven't even been married a month.
No.
But we know relationships. And with our experiences, that's just what we can share with you, is how important that is. And anything that we're telling you as well, I mean, it's easy for us. We laid that groundwork from the get-go, from the start, right out the gate. And I don't know what that would be like if we were to make that decision 6 months into the relationship. But that's not to say that you can't do that. I know I've personally been in relationships where communication was awful. The effort that was put into it is exactly what the result was that came out. So if you struggle with any of that in any of your friendships, any of your relationships, any relationships with your family, step back and look at communication and make yourself pour that into the foundation. If you're not starting from the beginning, that's okay. Add it and put that in and incorporate that and see if that helps your heart, your mindset, everything, and your emotions, anything get just a little bit better.
I agree, 100%.
Well, this one was, like we said, was intended to be a short clip. We just wanted to jump on and share a little bit about big decisions, communication. I think it mostly went more towards communication than we anticipated, but
Definitely.
We'll see y'all next week. I don't know what we're going to do. Don't really know what we've got up our sleeve, but
you never know. You never know what's going on in Reagan's world.
We'll see y'all next week.
Much love. Running on a low battery.
Yeah, we are.